You're watching The New Stack Makers, a podcast for people who develop, deploy, and manage at-scale software. For more information and articles about at-scale technologies, please visit thenewstack.io. Now enjoy the show.
KubeCon and Cloud Native Con conferences gather adopters and technologists to further the education and advancement of cloud-native computing. The vendor-neutral events feature domain experts and key maintainers behind popular projects like Kubernetes, Prometheus, Envoy, Core DNS, Containered, and more.
Taylor Dolezal of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation is with us. And Taylor, I have a song for you.
Yeah.
Taylor Dolezal of the CNCF. He's the king of the community, but he's really not the king because the developers are the kings. Tap to pay. Tap to pay. Okay.
Accepted.
There you go.
I liked it.
Oh, good.
Hey, it's better than ChatGPT. I gotta say.
I actually think I can replace ChatGPT.
I agree.
Okay, thanks. How's it going?
Good about yourself.
Really good, because you were saying, like, you don't do sessions. You were really good on stage.
Thank you.
Even I winced at the puns. I was like,
It's good. That's how we know they're landing home. Yeah. It's like when you feel, real art evokes emotion. Yeah. That's what we're shooting for.
Yeah, emotion.
It's like,
yeah, I have motion sickness, I think. So you've been busy with the CTO summit, community stuff. What have you been doing? What have you been doing with your time?
Alex, I've been getting my steps in. Yeah. We've been getting that. Yeah,
me
closing
too.
those
Let me
rings.
see.
Yeah.
I'll have to look while you tell me what you do.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's been a wild ride, honestly. It's been, had some passport trouble getting here, to like PSA to everybody, make sure that your passport expires 3 or 6 months later, just as oh my goodness, that caused me some trouble. So started off running to San Diego before I left here, so I got to see my first KubeCon in person, that venue.
Yeah.
Made it out here finally on Sunday, and then it was off to the races. Got to chat with a whole bunch of community members, got to set up for the CTO summit, got to prep for the keynotes, polish those slides, market test a couple puns with some of the the folks here.
Like, right. Yeah, STEM and...
Yeah, it's like laughs, winces, and then CTO Summit, and then closing things out today with that Top End User Award. Yeah, a huge +1 to Mercedes-Benz. So they have some great cars
that was pretty
too.
cool. What are you hearing from people here that's maybe... I always like to compare and contrast. Like how would you compare the community discussions here to other events you've been to?
Great question. I think that when it's come to this, typically with KubeCons and other CNCF and LF events, there's always been 1 or 2 topics that have bubbled to the top. But I think that this time around, it feels like there's like 5 to 7, and that's really interesting to me. I'm hearing WebAssembly, edge computing. I'm hearing internal development platforms. I'm hearing kind of like all of the many of the trends, and then of course, folks talking about AI talking about AI. It's been a really interesting time.
AI. Hey.
If you want to buy some vowels.
Yeah. What are people asking about AI?
Mostly just like how folks are using it is what's coming up, and then just cautions and concerns too. Like if we are going to use this, what does it look like? And that is an interesting conversation as well. It's really getting down to, in my opinion, it sounds like data sharing, right? It's not so much that AI is doing something, because that people can do. It's what you're putting in to create the end result, right? What you're putting into the function, and then its output. People worried about putting proprietary source code in there and that getting leaked. It sounds a lot more like a data issue to me personally. So but wonderful, interesting conversations. What a time to be a lawyer and just to have that thought experiment, frankly.
So I want to ask 2 questions. One is, what were some of the things you heard about how people are using AI that you thought were interesting?
I think...
And then the second thing is, I'd like to talk about the community role in AI. So let's tackle that first one first.
Yeah. So when it comes to how folks are using AI, it's really been a lot. Like are you writing beat poetry for the weekend, or are you taking a look at your source code and asking for how to write a pull request and what it actually does? Maybe you're somebody that just made some code changes and you don't know how to summarize that. Have a large language model try that for you and kind of break the initial friction is what it seems like a lot of folks are using it for. Like, okay, like writing a README is something that a lot of folks do, creating slides, those kinds of things. What are some menial tasks that are difficult to break that initial friction with? and then going about using that. That's both from a creative standpoint as well as from a development standpoint.
That then concurs with what I'm hearing too, like about how it's saving time in particular. Like Pulumi came and did a demo of their Pulumi AI, which in some cases there, people were saying it saves them so much time. Like what used to take a day now takes 10 minutes.
Yeah,
and that's fascinating. I mean, that turns the developer almost into gives them superpowers in many ways. So I'm curious on your sense of the community and its role in how we look at AI responsibly.
Yeah. So it's there. I'm thinking back to all the conversations. I'm making my own mental model of everything I've heard. It's really fascinating. I think that when it comes to helping folks up level, it really is a tool. In my personal opinion, it's something that folks can pull down and leverage to more quickly look at documentation, ask it about a function. I've put in a couple, paragraphs of things I've been trying to state and express in a public space, and get feedback on something, which is really interesting. And then a lot of the community is talking about, well, is this something that's good to use kind of as a muse, or is it good enough to kind of have as something that you could actually take some output with and then put it into a project or approve a PR? And then what that looks like for maintainers potentially as well. Because that's what we don't want to do, right, is put more burden on the maintainers, just yet another thing to do.
Right.
They already have so much to do.
Right. Yeah, and there's also, I'm curious about what people are thinking about the level of responsibility. And one of the things that makes me think about AI from an open source context is that, for me, what really provided to me such respect and curiosity about open source came with the enlightenment that followed after you used it, right? And that's always been propelled me in my interest in technologies. I'm not a programmer, but back in my earliest days, kind of really getting into how technologies could be used, I became a huge fan of RSS. And
that's my morning newspaper. I love RSS.
Yeah, I did an event called RSS Winterfest, and then I did an event called Podcast Hotel. And it's so fascinating to me because what it did, it allowed me to think asynchronously. I could put up a wiki. I could put up I could start an IRC chat. I could also have then a discussion at the same time. And then I could use RSS to then help people keep updated on what's being tended in the garden, the wiki garden, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And that was that gave me enlightenment, really. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm smarter, right? I know more, that I know how to use an OPML, to take in a bunch of blogs and be able to read them, right? All that kind of things. And that's what I'm most concerned about with AI. It's how will we? Because it's almost like we're reaching this time of a new humanity in a way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's we and you can almost trace it back to the 15th century, right? With the emergence of the Renaissance and and the whole kind of the flowering of art and culture and the enlightened person, right?
Yeah.
And that's where it seems like it is right now.
Yeah. There was one comparison that I heard. I was at so I live in Los Angeles, so there was an Academy Software Foundation event, and it was in my backyard. Is another Linux Foundation event, and I was like, I want to go to that, because one of the sessions was about AI and storytelling, and it was a wonderful presentation. I'm blanking on the name of the presenter, but it was a fantastic presentation where it focused on think back to the amphitheater and everything within a Greek context. They didn't have sound designers.
No.
They didn't have special effects folks. They didn't have continuity editors, for more or less. So when you even thinking back to cave paintings and everything else,
they had puns. I'm sure they had puns.
I know they did. They better have. Otherwise, we need a time machine. We gotta go back. Where we're going, there's literally no roads. They haven't been paved yet. It's really fascinating to see how it not only it will help out artists and other folks tell the story. Like you said, it will help us become enlightened in different ways. These things that might have taken a long time to figure out, like, hey, go run this down and figure this out for me. It kind of can give you a personal assistant kind of thing, like something like I've seen folks with something called Auto GPT. Having those agents go run you and do these tasks.
Yeah.
Go look this thing up. Hey, go make me a couple different recipes. I'm on a keto diet. Please go figure this out.
Right.
Really fascinating way to go and leverage that, I'm thinking.
Yeah, we're going to start to see the intersection of different technologies that we've started to hear about over the past year or two. For instance, confidential computing.
Yeah.
Right? And that's built on this concept of enclaves. Right? And the concept of enclaves relate to, for instance, like banks don't share data, but they could potentially with enclaves.
Yeah.
Right? And that then creates this new context for how we think about data, right? That seems to me the direction of open source.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think it is incredibly context bound. I mean, even folks, when it comes to there's a lot of talk about data sovereignty, digital sovereignty. How do we work within all of these confines of data too? And data right now, we just store things. We don't really think about, I have data in this country or this boundary, this threshold, and being able to proliferate that. Okay, if data comes in here, maybe it needs to sign these SBOMs or these, account for this tariff or this digital concern. It's fascinating. I've started to see some folks within the edge confines talk a little bit about that. And definitely within banks and people thinking in a cloud native sense on that front too.
So there's other topics that I'm interested in hearing about. Like, I was so fascinated by the size of ArgoCon.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
What's the story there? What do you think's going on?
I think so. I'm a little bit biased because I focus on end users and I'm constantly rooting for them. I truly think that a lot of their success has been around the fact that they have been able to have such a good heterogeneous amount of contributors. They've gone after having end users be the contributors rather than just a single company, essentially, driving a lot of the contributions. That then proliferates the community that much more because it's a lot more hardened and in use on more business verticals, sectors, contexts. It's had more face time within different digital interactions. And so with that, you have a lot more stability and adoption throughout. So many more pillars supporting.
What does it say about the maturity of the ecosystem that they're so interested in it, though?
I think that it's the fact that folks are able to see that as a good use case and an example that, this is a good way. That's something that we've been pitching for a while, is wanting to draw in more end users involvement and then make things easier for them. Because I've spoken with so many folks this week about helping to save time. They just don't have the time to stay up to date on everything, kind of like we were talking about with RSS, and have their day job too. You might be driving a sales platform like Shopify, or you might be trying to sell cars like Mercedes-Benz. Technology and staying up to date on the absolute latest digital trends might, that's an added on thing. That's an extra time concern. So something like Argo coming along to help make that a little bit easier, and then end users copying each other, sharing patterns, and being able to help one another out is something that has been so wonderful to see, rather than just buying a commercial off-the-shelf project. In some cases, you'll never get away from that, but it's really interesting to see.
I want to talk about the end users just for the last few minutes that we have. And with the ongoing evolution of Kubernetes, it's natural to have a lot of vendors involved who get it better than anyone else, right? Your focus is on the end users. How much is the end user community growing right now? And would you, of the entire community, of all the vendors and end users and in the community, what percentage of them are end users now, about, would you say?
I'd have to check. I think it was like 80-20 last I checked on the pizza slice. 80% vendors, 20% end users. Yeah. And so still smaller. Right. We've got that goal to get to. We'd love to see 50%, right? Definitely want to drive that up. Yeah. And then even right now, having many conversations with end user people that want to join as members, and what benefits does that get me? They're conscious of their time. And so again, they're like, well, does this mean more meetings, or are there assets that we can actually use to help make our business that much better? Does this give us the ability to quickly come up to speed with new topics, concerns, or get connected with the right folks that are solving similar problems? But it's been great to connect people that are in completely different industries, like have someone from Boeing talk to Intuit, talk to Mercedes, talk to Audi, and just kind of, these folks might not have ever spoken to one another. And even the projects here, best practices in Kubernetes, seeing that overflow into Prometheus, and then seeing people that would truly never really meet because they're staying focused on their project, their business, or their vertical. That's truly the magic of the melting pot of KubeCon, Cloud Native Con, I'd have to say.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking of what are the deeper community building that you're going to have to do, and and the community will have to do. And I saw it a little bit when I was talking to Xander about version 1.27 and how they're making a more concentrated effort on getting the word out earlier, right?
Absolutely.
And being and being kind of more frequent in the updates and making sure you're using all the channels appropriately. But how do you find that new user so you can up the user base overall?
Mostly, the good news is that a lot of folks are adopting Kubernetes and cloud native technologies projects and patterns, but they just haven't joined as a member. And so a lot of folks will show up, a good chunk of folks I've spoken to here, obviously it being a Kubernetes and cloud native conference, are using some facet of that. So they'll come and they'll say, hey, we'd love to join as members, or I don't quite understand this. Can you tell me how I'm going to benefit from this? That's always the question, right? Is what is the benefit when it's open source, when it's something that's free? If there are meeting minutes published that are free, like what's the true advantage? And it really is within that communication, that connection, and then those end user meetings, because again, it's that melting pot and it's just very high fidelity information being exchanged. For some of the folks that are newer, that's offering them something that can get them up to, the 0 to 60 speed becomes a lot more quick.
Well, thank you, Taylor Dolezal, a leader in a land of kings and queens and princes and princesses and lots of people overall. Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you very much, Alex.
If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, you can always subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on all the major social media platforms. You can always find us at thenewstack.io. We hope to see you soon.